Hello there and welcome to A Normal Meets a Nerd, a podcast with me, Dylan Evans, a normal person who loves asking abnormal questions you definitely want to know the answer to.
And me, Darragh, a nerd who does his very best to answer those abnormal questions in as scientific a way as possible.
Yeah, one thing, getting deep into these episodes now that it astonishes me about you is how do you remember so much? What's going on?
Well, I'm naturally good at it. Stuff kind of sticks in my mind.
So it's a natural thing to memory?
But I also work at it. So everybody can learn. This is the thing. Everybody can learn to remember things better. Yeah.
Okay.
To a greater or lesser extent. You're limited by talent and things, but most people don't try to remember stuff. They just go, oh, do I remember that? Whereas I actively try. And I come up with ways to remember things.
Like how?
So,
are you giving away your secrets?
No,
it's an exclusive.
They're not secret at all. So there's things that you can remember. Everybody remembers the order of the planets because you've got the mnemonic, my very easy method, all that stuff.
Yeah, I remember that.
But things like that help. So if you want to know where the countries in Central America are, all you have to think is that Great Britain is bad at Guinness.
Great Britain is bad at Guinness.
Okay, so you can't get a decent pint here in most pubs.
So you can every now and then.
In my head, you go, GB, no creamy pints. So GB is Guatemala, Belize.
No way.
Is El Salvador, Honduras, and they're beside each other. And no creamy pints is Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Panama. That's
so impressive. I find that so impressive.
And it's then, but if you think GBA, no creamy pints.
I know you've just said it. Yeah. It's kind of went out that other year.
So that's the thing. It has to be something that works for you. These aren't the people who say, oh, the universal method. You have to go whatever way your brain works. You make it interesting. You make something stick in some way. You can link facts together as well. So if you're trying to remember when certain people, historical figures, lived, you find ones that lived around the same time and you link them together in your head. So one that I do is King John of England and Genghis Khan were alive around the same time.
Okay.
And I know one of the facts that I've learned is King John sealed the Magna Carta in 1215. That's a really famous date in English history, and I have that remembered. So I know that both of them were alive then.
That's good.
And you link them together. And if I ever have another 13th century figure that's around the same time, I stick them together.
Nice.
So, Shakespeare.
So there's proper technique, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. There's ways to do it. So Shakespeare and Elizabeth I, they're around at the same time. He was at her court. She died a little bit before him. I have them all linked together. And I know some touchstone dates. And then you can chain people together. So you get a ballpark, and that's how I do it.
That's impressive. Yeah, I love that. Well, let's get into some mind-blowing questions
then,
shall we? Go on. The first one. Interesting first one here. Who was the first person to milk a cow and what were they thinking? It sounds wrong.
Everybody on the internet.
A good few people commented stuff like this.
So this goes around. And the most likely thing they were thinking, we should probably do with them what we've been doing with sheep for a couple of thousand years.
Wait, we were milking sheep first?
Yeah.
Actually, this makes it weird though.
Yeah. So sheep were domesticated a couple of thousand years before cows were, for lots of reasons. One is that agriculture started in the Middle East.
Right.
So the Fertile Crescent and all of that kind of thing, and domesticating animals for milk and meat and wool happened in the Middle East first. And in the Middle East, there's not that many cows. It's not suited for them. Sheep and goats were way more common. So sheep and goats would have been domesticated first. And a lot of people don't like to think about this, but we're mammals. Humans produce milk.
Oh yeah,
it's not that big a stretch.
Oh, we're milky. We're milky. Absolutely.
So we were already doing it with humans.
Is it not weird though, getting it from another animal? The more I think about milk, the weirder it kind of gets. Because you can't have human milk. That's odd. Yeah. That would raise eyebrows if you were like, how can you, what milk's that?
Yeah.
That's
have we got semi-skims? No, could you?
Yeah. But with another species, we're fine with that. Yeah. We'll drink by the pint.
It's one of those weird social taboos. So there was a restaurant in the UK that was selling human breast milk ice cream.
Okay.
A few years ago, and they got in a lot of trouble because you're not allowed to do that.
Why aren't we allowed?
Well,
that isn't ice cream.
Ice cream.
You just said ice cream.
Oh my goodness! This is a sign we need to get ice cream. Back in a minute.
What are the odds of that?
That's pretty
Someone
low.
selling ice cream. That sounds like it's edited in.
That's actually perfect.
Keep it in.
Keep that. That's
Keep
cool.
that in. That's brilliant.
Yeah. So.
Wow, the synchronicity's off the chart.
Yeah. So, but you weren't allowed. You're not allowed to sell human products, and there's very good reasons for that.
Why?
So, cannibalism is a bad idea.
Well, there we go. We're talking facts here today.
Not just morally wrong, but it's a bad medical and biological idea. So, if you have a disease in a system, if you've got a population that's got a disease and you eat that thing, you will spread that disease around, and you basically concentrate and funnel a disease in.
Right.
So eating the bodily fluids of another species means that you are way more likely to pick up, of your own species means you're way more likely to pick up a disease. Eating them from another species, a lot of diseases are very specific. They're species specific.
It's fine.
So you're way more likely to get sick eating the meat or milk of another animal. The other thing is that some animals, like cows and sheep, can produce multiple babies, and often do, and you can breed them to produce milk. Breeding humans to produce milk, a little bit sketchy.
That's true. You can't have that in a farm.
You can't go, yes, that lady produced a lot of milk, let's breed off her, that kind of thing. And so we were able to go, okay, we were selectively breeding for animals that were easy to control, to tame, that produce wool, produce meat, and if they're producing milk anyway,
may as well fill your boots.
Yeah, exactly.
So why do we kind of stop at like sheep, goats, cows? What else could we milk theoretically? Could you get rat milk?
Technically, if it's got nipples, you can milk it. But
and there's the clip. There's the tease for this episode.
But I think we have certain taboos. It's generally not considered a good idea to milk animals that are meat eaters.
We don't really eat anything that eats meat, do we? Thinking on it, do we?
It's generally, well, we kind of do, yeah. We do with fish. So we eat swordfish and tuna and things like that.
They don't count.
But there's reasons why, there's sensible reasons. One is that ecosystems have a lot more animals that don't eat meat than do, because you need to have that. You need to have a certain population to support meat eaters. So they're rarer. They're not just cooked rarer, they're actually
medium rarer. Medium rarer.
And they're very, very hard to produce at scale, whereas, plant eaters are easy to produce at scale. And as well, meat eaters, because they eat meat, like the cannibalism thing, you can have concentrations of...
It's not worth the risk, is it?
Yeah, so if you're pregnant, you're advised not to eat too much things like tuna and stuff, because they've got concentrations of certain metals and other things in their meat. So, it's easier to produce a plant eater at scale to eat, and they're generally not as risky to eat either.
Okay, well, we're learning, and we can't have rat milk. Well, we can have rat milk.
We can, but to imagine how small the stool would be, and you'd be like...
You need loads of rats. You need like a warehouse full of...
That's a dystopian future I don't want to see.
No, something a bit nicer. How do bees make honey? Because I can't make sense of it.
You might not think this is nice by the end of this.
Go on, honey's nice, bees are nice.
The honey's nice. I keep bees.
Yeah, I've seen this.
If they're still alive after the winter, fingers crossed. I've had a bad bit of luck the last couple of years. But yeah, bees produce honey basically by concentrating nectar. So
like the little powdery thing. So they go on a flower.
That's pollen.
So what do they do? They go on a flower.
They go on a flower.
Roll about.
Not roll about. They're usually fairly efficient, actually. And flowers are designed for the pollinators to get in and out of them quickly.
Okay.
So what the flower does is it leaves a little bit of sugary water with a few proteins and stuff in it, but mostly just sugar water, in a part of its flower.
Right.
And the insect has to go in to get it.
Yeah.
And that's its reward. While it's going in, it will dust it with pollen from its stamens, and then the next plant that the bee visits or the insect visits, the pollen will transfer, and that's basically flower sex.
Okay, lovely.
So flowers are just, sexual organs. There's they're
said through gritted teeth.
Plant willies. Yeah. So it's weird that we think that's romantic.
Yeah, sure. Have a bunch of these.
Yes, have a bunch of these genitals. So the bee will go in and it will collect and it will drink it, and it will go into what's called its honey or nectar stomach. So it has a part of its digestive system that it stores it in. And they'll visit lots and lots of them, and its honey stomach will fill up with nectar. It will go back to the hive.
Right.
This is the bit where, like, it's already, you know, inside the insect's
It
stomach.
sounds lovely so far. Na, 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 rolling round.
Yeah, it's inside its stomach.
Yeah.
And then when it goes back to the hive, so during a bee's lifetime, they work in certain jobs.
Yeah.
And they work for a while inside the hive, a while outside. So the ones that are foraging will go, and they will effectively vomit up the nectar from their honey stomach into the mouth of another bee.
Right. What? No. Don't say it. Don't say it like this. We're vomiting in each other's mouths.
They'll pass it. Okay. They'll pass it from one mouth,
like a vomit, though?
and then
Into another mouth.
into another bee's mouth. And
Get rid of them.
the enzymes from the stomach are already changing the sugars. So in nectar, it's mostly sucrose, like standard sort of table sugar.
Textbook.
And they break it down into smaller sugars, glucose and fructose. And they are the main sugars in honey. But they need to get rid of quite a lot of water. So the bees pass it from mouth to mouth, many bees. And this helps reduce the water content and it evaporates out.
This is like a nightmare.
Once it gets down to it's about 70% water in most flowers.
Right.
It gets down to about 25% water. Different sugars in it, so it's starting to look a bit more like honey. It's kind of syrupy. Then they put it into the cells of the honeycomb.
Yeah.
And then other bees fan it with their wings, which is slightly more pleasant, to help evaporate off more water.
They have to get hot bees, don't they?
They can
suffocate stuff, can't they?
Oh yeah, they can. They can swarm.
Attack, they just
if a hornet comes, they can swarm
I've
around
seen
it,
that.
and they heat up so much that they cook the.
I can't tell if
hornet
bees are
alive.
nice or not.
Bees are wild animals. They're not nice.
Not nice, but I mean, like, I can't tell if.
Do you think they're the good guys?
Yeah, like, I don't know if they are. They seem
They're just
horrible.
bees. Yeah.
They seem horrible the more you tell me about them.
Yeah, no, I quite like them. I think they're awesome. But
They scare me as well.
so they fan it all out.
So you said you keep bees.
Yeah.
How many times have you been stung?
10 or 20 the last couple of
20,
years.
and you still do it?
Yeah.
You're mad.
Yeah, but I like it.
After one bee sting, if a bee's coming near me now, I'd like to think I'm quite, not really scares me. I've been stung as a kid. It's like something triggers in my brain and I'm like, go. I will run away from it, be like a kid.
It's not as bad as you remember.
Is it not? See,
It's
'cause
painful,
This
but
happened
it's
when
not
I was
as
about 8 or 9.
Yeah, but you know, when you're 8 or 9, your perspective is not great when it comes
So it's
to
not,
that.
well, it's not that bad.
It's very painful for a very short period of time, then it goes away.
But you've been stung 20 times and you still
I'd
want
say
to
over
keep
the last
them.
few years, yeah.
If I got stung twice, I'd be booting down the hive.
No, I don't
What are
mind
you talking to?
Yeah.
I go full aggression.
Yeah, no, that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to go full aggression because they'll get a bit mad.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, back to honey.
Oh, go on.
So once it reaches the right level, they fan it down to about 20-ish% water.
Yeah.
They cover it over with wax, and then it will last literally forever. Honey does not go
It
off.
doesn't go stale ever.
No, honey never
Have
goes
they
off.
done that?
Because
How have they managed
it's
to figure that
got
out?
the right amount of sugar to water to preserve it.
We can't make honey.
No,
They can only make honey. We can't
Yeah.
make anything like slightly like
we,
it.
we could probably imitate it, but we can't make it.
Wow.
And they've taken honey out of the pyramids in Egypt. That's still safe to
Wow. That's insane. How
Yeah.
long have bees been about? Billions?
eat. Yeah, millions and millions of years. It's the only food stuff that we know of that doesn't go off. If there's a date on a jar of honey, it's the date that the lid will go off, not the honey itself. Because the plastic lining of the lid has a shelf life. Or if it's in a plastic bottle, the plastic bottle will break. So honey doesn't go off, the container goes off first.
That's so impressive.
Cool, isn't it?
Shout out to bees.
Yeah.
Any bees listening?
And if you like food, shout out to bees. Yeah, we kind of need those guys.
Yeah, we
they,
do.
they don't need us, we need them.
Yeah, is it that important? So like,
Yeah.
would we say bees just one day, or like an alien come, they went, we need the bees, took every last bee, how would we die?
A lot of things that we like would be gone. A lot of fruit wouldn't pollinate. A lot of fruit, a lot of vegetables.
So we'd be
We'd be in a lot of trouble.
Right.
Yeah. We probably wouldn't die. We could probably survive, but it would be a bit grim.
It'd be a different
no
world.
honey, no jam. What would you put in your toast? No marmalade.
Nutella?
No.
No.
Hazelnuts.
Oh yeah, we'd be done.
We'd be in a lot of
We'd
trouble.
be
Yeah.
done.
We'd have to eat butter on toast. Yeah, like peasants. It'd be ridiculous.
So yeah, bees vomit honey.
Yeah, and vomit into each other's mouths repeatedly.
I wish I never knew this.
Yeah, just think about that next time you're sticking some on your bagel.
Yeah, lovely. So How does Satnav and Google Maps and all of this kinds of technology work so well? It kind of blows my mind sometimes. It's so accurate, like even to like the angle of your phone, that exactly where you are in the world. It blows my mind how.
This is actually a brilliant achievement by humanity. The fact
get it.
that, like, I remember when I was a kid, you're sitting in the car and you'd be, say, going to France on holidays or something, and your dad would go, okay, everybody has to look out for signs for this town or this road.
Yeah.
And if you went wrong, you were done.
Yeah.
That was it. There was no
lost.
recovery. Whereas here, when we were on the way to the studio, I had my little sat nav on, boop, boop, no problem. It showed me exactly where to go and it showed me exactly where we were.
Yeah.
But you remember when we left the car park, it said GPS signal lost, and it was done. GPS is an amazing system, and the reason why it works so well is partly down to Albert Einstein, weirdly. So GPS was originally developed to guide missiles because, you know, we're humans. That's what we do. And it's largely run by the US because they own the satellites. There's 24 of them orbiting around the Earth at any given time.
Is that it?
Yeah. I know. It doesn't seem like a lot, does it?
I just said thousands.
So what you have to have is 4 of them working together at the same time.
Okay.
So how it works is if you're able to tell the distance you are from 3 or 4 objects that are separated out, you can use maths to find out exactly where you are. So it's called triangulation.
And this is what's working on everyone's phone?
Yeah. So you're able to do that. And they're like, the thing to remember is they're 25,000 kilometers away.
Right.
So they're really far away.
Miles away.
Yeah, and they're orbiting around Earth. There's never a point over the major population centres of the world where there isn't at least 4. There's usually about 10 within sort of broadcasting range. So they're spread around, but they're very cleverly done so that you can always find a few of the satellites.
This is mad.
And if they're able to measure extremely accurately how far away you are from each satellite that can pick up your signal.
Oh, that's what it's doing.
It's able to pinpoint exactly where you are. But it has to be really accurate. And to do that, they have to have stupidly accurate clocks on them because they have to know exactly timings are a key part of this.
Clocks?
Yeah, but they're atomic clocks. So they're accurate to within about 10 nanoseconds, which is like a really small fraction of a second. But they need to be that accurate or else it doesn't work exactly. Because they're so far away, the margins of error have to be really small, and GPS is accurate to within like a meter or something. It's really close. So to get it that right, the time is really a big factor in the maths, okay? For various reasons that are way too complicated to go into. But we'll just say, we'll accept on balance that time is important, okay? So one of the slight problems is that time, we like to think as time as being constant. Like a second is a second, no matter what. That's not true.
Well, how can you say that? A second's not a second, and I'm just meant to sit here and go,
So
you're
a second
is it's a second, one.
Different depending on gravity. The length of time a second takes is different. So seconds can be longer or shorter, okay?
No.
Yeah, so this is to do with space-time and relativity. So Einstein's big thing was the theory of relativity, and general and special relativity are his 2 ones that you talked about. And effectively, if you're in a tiny amount of gravity, time goes a little bit slower.
Are we talking like how small, like nano?
Really small.
Right, but a technical difference?
Yeah, there is a technical difference. And because we need it down to nanoseconds, they actually have to adjust the times and the calculations to allow for relativity. Einstein was right. It turns out the man was a genius, genuine genius, and he knew what he was talking about. So they're able to use very complicated maths very, very quickly, and they adjust for that time difference based on relativity and how far away every satellite is from you, and it can tell you how to get to the pub.
This is so much more impressive than I thought.
It's way more
But you know what? I've also never thought about it. It's one of them things I'm just like, I assume it's just does it. Same with like Bluetooth. Yeah, whatever. We went from grass and rocks to Satnav and Bluetooth. What happened?
It's the black box idea. It's like a magic thing that just works.
Yeah.
But it was originally designed so that they could drop a missile to within a meter accuracy.
It all starts with war, ladies and gentlemen.
War is the mother of invention is an old saying, and in this case, Einstein and war are the reasons why you're able to find your mate's house really easily. Yeah, there you go.
My mind's being blown here. I'm loving this. So on that, what did people do before electricity, the internet, fridges, all stuff like that? How did we cope? But not the same thing as them humans.
No.
That's all.
They just had very different lives. So we'll do these one by one. There's 3 there. So we'll do the internet first, because everybody knows the internet, and you're watching this on the internet. Boom! Yeah, or listening, possibly. So one of the things that people did before the internet was they believed me. My mates always say this.
What do you mean?
So when we used to be down the pub, I've always been like this.
Okay.
I've always been the one throwing out, the reasons for things. And they used to just flat out believe me. So sometimes when I didn't know, I made things up.
That's boss.
And they weren't able to check.
You were there, Google.
And I remember a few years ago when smartphones first came in, they went, hold on, Bones, which is what they all call me. We don't have to listen to you. We don't have to believe your shit anymore. I'm going to look this up. I'm going to check. So it happened when I came back from Canada, and they were asking why I don't come back more often and why I don't go to the West Coast to visit another friend of mine. I said, because it's quicker and shorter to fly to Dublin from where I live in Canada than it is to go to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Like, no, nonsense, absolute nonsense. But when they looked it up, genuinely was.
Right,
It wasn't much in it, but it was. But yeah, they used to just believe people flat out.
Well, I think I don't know what I'd do before Google. How did you research stuff? Libraries, books?
The Guinness Book of Records.
You used to love that, yeah.
Do you know why it exists?
No.
Because there was an argument in a pub about a fact. I think it was about the fastest flying bird or something like that.
Yeah.
And that gave them the idea. So the original reason for Guinness Book of Records was to solve arguments with your mates, like I had, in a pub.
And it's Guinness, isn't it? Like Guinness, the
I
drink.
think it's the family, yeah.
That's mad.
Yeah, so the 2 guys who started it weren't from the family, I don't think. But they had an argument over, I think, how fast like a plover or a pheasant
And that's why
flies
the
or something.
Guinness Book of Records is a thing.
Yeah, and it was to resolve arguments in pubs.
That's boss. I love that.
Yeah. So that was one thing. People read stuff in books.
So that was it.
You used to have one of the libraries in New York, I think the State Library or the City Library, used to have a phone number you could phone up to ask the librarians a question, and they'd get back to you.
What a terrible job.
No, apparently they loved it, because someone would go, me and my mates were having an argument about, this. Can you find it which is true? And they go, okay, give us a number to call you back. And they'd go and research it, and they'd call you back. Or
For free?
Yeah.
No, you'd have to pay.
I think you had to pay for the phone call, but yeah.
Oh, nice.
And there was people who, like me, who knew stuff, were a bigger deal then.
Yeah, we needed the names.
But yeah, it was all like, Encyclopedia Britannica. I had a set of encyclopedias in my house, and we used to look things up when we wanted to know.
I had to hated this.
Yeah, and it even got to the point where if stuff was being updated, they would send you like little things you could add in, and you could stick into the picture.
Yeah. How did you know your book was right?
I think we had World Book encyclopedias or something, and then like every year you could buy the add-on pack, and they'd tell you which page
expansion
to stick
pack.
it in. Yeah, because new information was available.
New update just dropped.
Yeah, and that was the thing. Most houses had encyclopedias. There used to be door-to-door encyclopedia salesmen. That was the thing.
This sounds horrible.
Yeah.
This is a nerd's
And
world.
you had to like find it and look it up, and you had to know how to spell it, and there was no spell correct or anything.
Oh,
yeah. Did you mean blah, blah, blah?
What else did we say? Refrigeration? Is that all like cheeses and
that's
stuff?
a big thing, refrigeration.
What did we do before that? Like cured meat?
Yeah.
How did it never just go mouldy?
Well, things were seasonal for starters. You only had fruit when it was available. So you would have only had strawberries and raspberries in the summer. That was it. You would have only had...
That could be quite nice though.
It can be quite
Strawberry week and...
Yeah, and all that kind of thing. And people made a big deal out of them.
Yeah.
But then that's why you made jam. You'd cure meats, you'd salt them. Our food was a bit rubbish, to be honest.
Yeah, it sounds like it'd be terrible.
You didn't get... Stuff didn't travel. So you wouldn't have had anything that had to be shipped more than a couple of days because it would just go bad. You certainly didn't have, lamb from New Zealand or,
you couldn't keep
tomatoes flown in from North Africa in the middle of the winter. You just didn't have them.
It's a different world, not that long ago.
Yeah,
Not that long ago.
The original ice boxes were literally ice boxes as well. So you'd have a giant block of ice that you'd put into the container at the bottom, and then a sealed container. The refrigerator didn't have refrigerants in it. It was just an ice box, and that would help keep it cool. And you go and buy ice, a big, huge block of it.
There was an ice salesman.
Yeah.
Get your ice here, get your ice here.
And some like big houses and stuff like stately homes would have had an ice house, which would have been like filled with a large amount of ice, because it would stay for ages, and they would keep stuff on ice. But for the average punter, you just ate what was available at the time. And another side thing is aircon.
Yeah, what do you mean?
World of aircon. British people don't understand this.
No.
Because you don't really need it. So very few people have aircon. But I lived in Canada, in Montreal.
That's cold.
Cold in the winter, but in the summer it's roasting. So we were talking about this on the way here, actually. There's an 80-degree swing between hottest and coldest
Which
in some
is
parts.
insane.
So you go from minus 40 all the way up to plus 40. And plus 40 with 90% humidity is horrific.
Yeah, that's hell on earth.
And we didn't have aircon, so we had like bowls of iced water with fans blowing over them when we were in bed trying to cool down.
Does that work?
No, not really. A tiny little bit. It would be like, throwing a cup of water onto a fire. It didn't really make that
I'll do
much
it.
sense. So air conditioning made a big difference, like a big difference.
How? It's just what, you don't sweat as much. That's not that big.
The southern US was empty. The population was really low. They were agricultural. It was like the towns were small. Now, Florida, California, all Texas, Mississippi, all of those that have huge cities and millions of people. It was just so unpleasant to live there that people didn't go.
So that's mostly aircon. Aircon made them places
Air conditioning made
habitable.
them grow. Yeah, and there's a direct link. When aircon became cheap and readily available in like the 20th century, those cities expanded massively.
Wow.
Because people would genuinely leave because it was just so hot.
I've never thought about that.
Yeah, and it made a big difference. And if you go outside of temperate places like the UK and Ireland, it's such a big deal.
Yeah.
It makes everybody's life better.
Wow.
And do you know the way we say al fresco? If we're eating outside, we eat al fresco. In Italy, that's not what it means. It means eating indoors because you're in the aircon. It's eating in the fresh air. The fresh air. For us, fresh air is outside, but in a lot of countries, the fresh air is actually inside in the aircon.
Do you know what? I never thought you'd blow my mind off air conditioning.
There you go. It was very important.
This is mad.
Yeah. And electricity.
Well, but I don't get how we function. Pre-electricity humans, to me, I'm talking like that's just like rubbing sticks together, cavemen.
Yeah, well, we had industrial revolution and steam and gas, so there were gas lights. But for most people, they just lived by sunshine. So.
Is there going to be one after electricity? Does that make sense? Like it was steam, gas, like you just said. So. Now this is the electricity phase. What's next?
Oh, well, if you knew that, you could make a few quid. But
nuclear?
Yeah.
Was that?
No, nuclear's already done.
But now we have better.
Nuclear fusion is the next one.
What's that mean?
So right now, nuclear power, we get it from splitting atoms. Mm-hmm. But fusion is what powers the sun.
Right.
And in theory, if we can crack it, it's almost infinite energy for almost no money.
Great. This sounds good. Write this down, someone.
But they haven't cracked it yet. So that's
what we need to do.
It's one of those things where they say it's 20 years away and have been saying that for 50 years.
Oh, okay.
They're able to do it, but they put way more energy in than they get out.
Right.
So if they can do it in an economic, scalable way,
we'll
be able to produce so much electricity not with like nuclear fuel, but with just hydrogen, and we can get that from water.
And then we'll look back to this and be like, they were like cavemen, with the Satnavs.
And it would mean that we would have so much power all of the time, and it would be so cheap to produce. Now, whoever does it will charge people a lot of money for it, because that's what humans do.
Yeah.
In theory, fusion power could change everything.
Amazing.
But before electricity, you got up when the sun got up and you went to bed when the sun went down.
I wonder if things were better. Definitely all slept better. My phone keeps me awake, so
we probably slept better.
See,
but we also probably worked 16 hours a day during the summer. True. And we're sick all the time. And
apart from all that,
no
they got
TV,
a good kip.
No radio.
They got a good kip.
You probably only read for a couple of hours a day, and that was it.
Sounds grim.
If you could read, yeah.
If you could read.
Let's stick with electricity. It's better.
One thing I'm always curious about is cloning, right?
Yes.
Did we stop cloning? We done Dolly the sheep. Did we stop cloning things after Dolly the sheep?
No. Dolly was just the headline grabber for lots of real reasons. But clones occur naturally. Humans aren't the only things that clone things. Some stuff reproduced by cloning themselves.
What?
Yeah.
No, what? No, what clones itself? What are you on about?
So a lot of funguses do.
Just like copy and paste?
Yeah, so they do clone quite a bit. A lot of plants do. Blueberries can be clonal. But there's one called the honey fungus, which is clonal, and this is cool. This is going to blow your mind. This is the biggest living thing.
Wow. Bigger than a whale?
Yeah, much bigger. Do you want to guess how big it is?
This big.
It's
Well, under the floor, I'm thinking now, if we're
It's
talking
underground,
like
yeah.
mushrooms and that.
Yeah, it's a fungus, a single fungus that reproduces clonally, so it's
So
the
it
same
copy and
organism.
pastes itself?
Yeah.
Go on,
And
how big?
the current estimate is that it's over 6 square kilometres.
One living thing?
Yeah, a single living thing.
That's terrifying, like
Yeah.
a city, like
So
a town.
A clone is just something that copies itself. It
Yeah.
doesn't reproduce, and it's in Oregon, and it's a honey fungus. And you see the mushrooms pop up, but the mushrooms are only the tiniest bit
Yeah,
of the
it's
fungus.
all the mycelium network.
Good job.
Mycelium network.
There
like
we
that.
go.
Got one.
So
Got
it's all
one.
these threads that live through the soil, but they've taken samples that are like miles apart, literally miles
Yeah.
apart, and it's the same thing.
That terrifies me a little
Yeah.
bit. Nothing should be that
So
big.
the Last of Us is
It's
you know, it's
coming.
a documentary.
It's coming.
But yeah, and there's other things like there's quaking aspen stands. So aspen's a type of tree that they can produce clonally, and that's considered to be one organism.
But like what we done with Dolly, have we stopped that?
Oh, in the lab? No, we do it all the time.
Oh, people started doing it with dogs.
Yeah,
I
so
seen this on the
Barbara
news.
Streisand paid $50,000 to clone her dog.
Which I think's weird. You shouldn't do that.
No, you shouldn't.
It's bizarre.
There are plenty of animals that need homes. You don't need to produce clones.
Oh, I didn't mean it for that. I just meant to think
Oh,
it's
just
stupid.
that's weird, yeah.
Yeah, just like leave it, get a new dog.
Yeah, and the idea that one particular dog, that you would be so sort of nostalgic about that dog that you want to have
And then
it
say
forever.
it wasn't the same.
Well, it won't be.
Exactly.
This is the thing. There's all sorts of formative things that are not genetic.
Yeah, that would happen when it was a puppy. It might have got shouted at once, and it
can
changed
change its personality in a lot, or it might got bitten by another dog or something. And it can change it. So it's not a guarantee of personality at all. Like, you're more likely to have that kind of temperament. This is why people prefer certain breeds, but it's not going to be exactly the same. And 50 grand.
That's
I suppose
insane.
Barbara Streisand doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's fair.
Apparently Simon Cowell does it as well, but then he's not short of a few quid either.
Yeah, true. Right.
But it does happen all the time, and it's not just like plants and funguses. Some animals do. So there was an aquarium in Omaha.
Okay.
Sorry, just checking my notes there, where there was 3 what were called bonnet head sharks, kind of like a hammerhead shark.
Yeah.
But they're all female. They'd never been exposed to a male. They'd been there a long time. And they came in one morning, and there was a 4th one, a baby.
How?
Because it's...
How's this got
Yes, look, what's happened here? So there's a thing called parthenogenesis,
Right.
where you can reproduce a clone of yourself if you're not around a male. And quite a few animals do this. Some snakes do it as well. Quite a few amphibians do it. No mammals do it though.
Right.
So the idea is that if you're in a particular place and there's no males and you need to reproduce,
You can clone yourself.
you can clone yourself.
That's mad.
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it? And you can have lots and you can reproduce. So some animals are able to do it, and some snakes do it quite a lot, but no mammals do it, which is why Dolly was such a big breakthrough.
Yeah,
because it was a difficult thing, and whatever way mammals have evolved, we've lost this ability completely. So we do clone stuff, we clone dogs, but like labs clone smaller things all the time.
I know no one would admit it. Do you reckon we've cloned a human?
I don't think we have.
Do you not reckon?
I think-
Someone's
I
tried
think-
that?
I think
That's like a top secret
I
thing
think
someone
we
will have.
could.
So, do you think like the technology's there to clone a human?
If we were willing to do it, but the failure rate of cloning mammals is quite high.
Yeah.
So when they do reproduce these dogs, they have to try a lot. So I think it's like in the region of like 20% of them successfully.
Oh, really?
And you have to implant them into.
Do you get your money back
into an
if
adult
they
female.
fail?
No, I think that's
Keep
part-
the receipt.
I think that's part of the reason why it's so expensive, is because
You got to keep trying.
So we would need to implant lots of times into lots of women.
But it's doable.
In theory, it's perfectly doable.
That's scary, that, isn't it?
Morally, it's
Oh yeah,
really
morally is a big question mark.
I think if we ever get to the point where we can do artificial wombs, where we can raise embryos outside of a human, that it's only a matter of time before someone starts
Start
doing
doing
that.
that.
'Cause I think
That's proper science fiction. That is
yeah,
like big columns
it is,
of people
yeah,
that like.
it's like yeah, it
bubbling.
is. It's like the
Good
tanks.
impression. Yeah, I've got that in my head.
You get an extra. Yeah. But yeah, it is very possible in theory, but it would be hard. It would take years of work, and it would have a very high failure rate. So,
But potentially
Potentially
human
we could-
clones coming soon.
we could have many Dylans.
Oh, we don't want that. We don't want that. We don't want that. Another one I just don't get. Why don't cruise ships sink?
It kind of boggles belief that they float, doesn't it?
It doesn't make sense. It's like a little city, like a skyscraper, just floating.
Yeah. So
But how did they not sink? I see some in Liverpool sometimes. They're bigger than the buildings when they pull up.
well, the biggest one. Have you seen the biggest one in the world? the icon of the seas.
No.
It's 250,000 tons.
250,000 tons.
That's without the people on it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's unbelievably large. It's epically huge. It's got water slides and all this kind of stuff.
It's insane.
It's completely monstrously large. And my parents loved the cruise. So when we were sort of a few years ago, my parents said they're not going to leave us an inheritance. They're going to spend it all on cruises, and they went on a load of them. Top tip. That's the way to do it.
That's the way to do it, absolutely.
And they went on all these big cruise ships, and they said it was like a town, a floating town.
Well, yet they don't sway.
They're so big. They're really hard to move them. So the thing about this is, it doesn't actually matter how big it is, because the physics scales up.
So you could have it 500,000 tons?
It could. The limiting factor actually becomes not that it'll float, that it'll be able to go into any sort of port.
Oh, so we're not... wait.
The top end of them is not going to be determined by how heavy it is. It's how big it is. Because there's very few... The really, really big one can only go into a very small number of ports, because, they have to be bigger in every direction to float.
How is it floating?
So what it is it's about a couple of things. One is buoyancy. So in the old days, things floated. You made it out of wood floats. Simple.
I get that.
Yeah, and it makes sense. So that's
buoyancy.
buoyancy.
Fine. I understand that.
Things that are inherently less dense than water will float on top of it. Okay. So if you throw a lump of wood on water, it'll float, unless it's ebony, because that's just being difficult, which sinks. But metal doesn't.
Right.
So there's a very clever chap called Archimedes. You might have heard of him, and he has this famous thing, eureka. He got into the bath and had a eureka moment. Eureka means I've got it, or something like that in Greek. Because when he sat down in the bath, the water slopped over the edge.
Right.
And he realized that the amount of him, the volume of him that got into the bath, was the amount of water that went out. So if you have a container that's completely full with water right to the very top, and you drop an object into it, that'll sink. The volume of that object will replace the water. Okay. And the water will flow over, much water will flow over.
Yeah, that makes sense. I can make sense of that.
If you want to measure how big something is that's irregularly shaped, you can do that. It's a basic science experiment. So this is a fundamental law of physics, displacement. So if you push out, displace more water that weighs more than the thing you're putting in,
it'll float.
It floats.
Oh my God! So technically,
so they're shaped in a very particular way, so that they will displace.
Deep underneath.
They do, but they go in particular ways, and they belly out, and they're shaped in a particular way, so that they will displace more than they weigh.
I get what you're saying. It's the laws of physics and that, but it still is insane to me, and it won't go in my head.
So the amount of water that they push out,
it should still sink, though.
For that big one, is more than 250,000 tons.
But it should still, it doesn't make sense.
I know, but that's just how it is. And there's a couple of other reasons why they can't. When they're moving, when they're going forwards, that lifts them. They go up. So in the same way that, say you're on water skis, if you sit on them, you just sit and you sink into the water. But when it starts to pull you forward, you go and you go up. So that helps keep them higher in the water. But even when they're stopped, the displacement alone.
The fact, if it stops, in my head, when a cruise stops, that should just go. And the fact it doesn't.
People who are
I get what you're saying.
People who are a lot better at maths than you or I have figured this out.
Oh,
exactly.
I'm assuming I'm wrong. I've seen
it's not
them
magic.
Float.
It's just physics.
Physics is sort of magic. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense.
Still won't do a cruise though.
No, I can't be
not interested in it.
No,
everyone says they're great, but I like being on land.
Yeah, call me old-fashioned. Right, unbelievable. Good episode.
That was good, yeah.
Do you know what we need though?
What?
We need the people listening and watching right now to get your comments in so you can feature on the next episode. This is what we need. I don't care if it's a weird question, a crazy question. Get them in and we will get our super nerd to answer them.
In fact, the weirder and more bonkers, the better. Because if we've never thought of them, but you guys have, that's much better, more fun.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Get the questions in and make sure you tune in for the next episode.
Boom.